Welcome to the Concept 101 podcast. My name is Daniel.
Jules and Stefan.
We are three concept artists currently working in the film and games industry, as well as the organisers of the Concept 101 event in London. If this is your first time listening, then our format changes occasionally, but generally the format is that we each bring our own topic to the episode, and then we have a little bit of a discussion about it. Of course, all of them are vaguely art or concept art related. We're not just here talking about what we had for lunch, which was meatballs, by the way.
Yeah.
Delicious meatballs.
Yeah.
From IKEA.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
But I think Stefan has the first topic for today, so why don't you kick us off, man?
Yeah, so the first topic is related to the interviews and then potentially art tests that you might face in the industry. As your initial kind of getting into the industry and how to handle it, and what was our experience of handling both interviews and art tests. So let's start with you, Jules. What was your experience? Who have you interviewed for? And have you done art tests ever?
Yeah, so I did one art test for my current job, and I also had interviews for previous jobs I did as well. So I think usually you apply, or someone puts your name forward, that kind of stuff, and then they want to talk. If they're interested in your work, they'll just kind of reach out to you to kind of see if you're not crazy and if you're nice to work with, or if you're a good person, really, usually. And I guess the interviews I've been doing lasted between 30 minutes to 40 minutes. I don't think, maybe an hour, but never more. And it was always quite chill. It never was too serious. It was more like of a friendly chatter, trying to figure out, as I said before, if the person you're talking with is a nice person to work with.
Yeah.
So this might be linked to the companies I've been at, but it was very, very chill. Usually asking questions about what's my process, how long do I usually take to the work. They also asked me sometimes to talk about my own work and how I did it, and like some sort of portfolio piece, can I explain it?
I think generally most kind of interviews are really just like is this person a psycho test?
Yeah.
You know, check how you can get along. Can you take a bit of a joke? Can you take criticism about your work? And I would say, like you said, most interviews are pretty chill. Doesn't mean that you don't get ones that are less chill. I can definitely say that I've had some less chill job interviews. Yeah. Where I'm not really sure what the goal of the interview was, because I kind of went into it with the advice that we just gave, which was like, yeah, most interviews are very chill. But I can say for sure I went to one interview where they went like pretty much straight for my throat. It was very unpleasant.
Really?
Yeah, it was, I don't want to say like who it was with or where it was, but it was just like, it was a lot. And I think some people do take it as an opportunity, depending on the style of the person who's interviewing you, to really like test your limits a little bit. So they're not all nice. I'd say the majority of them that I've had have been very pleasant, actually. But yeah,
It's also a great opportunity for you to see if you want to work with them.
totally. Yeah.
Like, it might be harder to think about this if it's your first job, but once you start switching companies, or once you really want to do some kind of specific work in a company, it's as important for you to be in the mindset of, are these guys worth it, or are these guys nice to work with? Do they have, like, also it's a great time, actually is the time for you to ask questions as well about, how do they work, what's their process, into like, what's the hierarchy in the company, what's the turnover, or like, work turnover, like deadlines and that kind of stuff. And it's not just about you proving them that you're good, but it's also about them proving you that they're good. And that's probably why maybe the longer in industry, the chiller the interviews get.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think the more experience I've collected over the years, the more relaxed people have been in interviews with me. Because I think like once you can say like, I've worked at this company and I've worked on this movie and this and that, you're inherently, that's almost like a proof, right? That you're decent at what you're doing. And so people are generally less aggressive, I would say. I also think though, it's probably also because there aren't that many professional concept artists at the end of the day around the world. Like, actually, it is a very niche skill set and it is a very niche community of people. And so there's probably also a part there, like, once you're trying to fill a role, like you will see on ArtStation, like a job role goes up for a senior artist and it won't be filled for like over a year. That's not because no one's applying, but it's because there aren't enough people who are that skill level to actually fill that job role.
It's true. I mean, definitely what Daniel was saying about the roles, and there's like definitely not that many people that can fill in like the more senior roles. I think if you're going for a junior role and applying for that, there will be a lot more competition.
Yeah.
But even then, if you are like already really good skill level, you know, there not gonna be like insane amount of competition, especially if you look into if you manage to find like companies that are just kind of starting out almost, but they still looking for concept artists, they probably get the worst applications. Because they want, like, you know, maybe they might even have the budget to pay for someone more expensive, but like no one is interested in them. And that's for sure like what you know could be your opportunity is to find like a new up and coming company and try to like you know, apply there. Yeah. I was just gonna say that it's actually I don't know.
I think it's good to say as well that at least with my experience, if you get to the interview, it means that you're almost there.
Yeah.
But not always.
I
have seen that.
I mean, I had 3 interviews in my life, and I got 2 jobs.
Fair
Right.
enough. Yeah.
And that's it. It's either I didn't get any interview at all, or I got like 1 interview which I got rejected, and then my 2 previous interviews I got the job. So it's like, in my experience, once I managed to get the interview, then it was because they
were hire at that point usually.
or like they were interested. I guess my art was good enough, and it was just like, am I crazy? And I am, but they didn't see it. So thank
You
fuck.
hit it so well. Go on.
Sorry, I want to definitely say that I have seen it happen where someone was interviewed for a role. It was not a junior role, so I wonder if this is an experience of junior roles. Maybe when you're like already interviewed for a junior, they'll most likely take you because you're like good enough. Maybe not, but I've seen this happen with other roles where they are a bit more rigorous of like trying to find out if this person actually fits the skill level and the role that they want to hire the person for. So they might ask questions about like their work process or whatever, and just sometimes it happens to people that they are interviewed over and over again, and then someone else gets chosen and no one ever get back to them. Like that can also happen, that you are in an interview, people never get, you know, someone else chooses someone else, and you never hear back. And that's, I think, when you should like reach out and ask for feedback.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's good to always, no matter what,
because you would want to know like why you were rejected, but sometimes you don't even get that. People don't tell you, and it's probably not even because you're an asshole or anything. It just happened that they found someone else that was better at the time.
Just to add some formality to this discussion, but like, what are your kind of, I guess, like explicit experiences? So could we each talk about like one of our experiences actually getting interviewed and what it happened, like, you know, breakdown by breakdown? I think I can talk about I think your guys' ones are pretty positive, so I'll throw out my negative one to start off. It was like an hour's booked interview, and it went so badly that within the first like 20 minutes they told me they were done, and then I was like, oh really? And they were like, yeah, we're finished now. And I was like, oh, okay.
And did you get it?
Or
maybe
give
let's
away
not talk about
which
it.
company it is, or if it's not a company I work for or anything. So, you know, but I literally started off with, I went into the interview and they opened up my portfolio on the computer, and the AD who was there just went, yeah, so obviously your work's pretty good, but I don't like any of this. And he just started going through all of my work and tearing it to pieces, like right in front of me. We barely said hello at this point. Like, I'm kidding you not, like this was 30 seconds into the interview. So that was a bit of a surprise. I don't know if that was like a stress test to see how I handled it, but I kind of felt a little bit like, it felt a bit like a power play to me, where they were trying to just like demonstrate like, yeah, we can criticize you kind of thing. So that was a little bit odd. And then, yeah, after a very short amount of time, they were like, so do you want to ask any questions? And I was like, don't you usually leave that for the end? And they went, no, this is the end. And I went, oh, okay. I will say the interview continued for longer than that, because they actually did find more things that they wanted to speak with me about. But it was a very quick and kind of brutal experience compared to other interviews I've had, especially interviews like after I had worked in my first job, like every interview I've had after that point has been also about me selling myself to the company, but also the company trying to sell themselves to me.
Yeah.
And showing me like, generally like the difference is people now, if I have an interview, will ask me like what I want to do at the company and like what would make you want to work here, and here's why we are good to work with. Whereas I think those first few interviews I had when I didn't have any real work experience and I just had a bit of freelance here and there were like, so this is what we expect.
Yeah.
It's a very different frame of reference that it exists in.
You also worked quite a few freelance jobs before even.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
And I'm assuming you would have some interviews in those jobs as well.
Yeah, I think often for freelance work, the
These are
interview
less
process is a
interview.
little bit chill. Yeah, because like ultimately, I did like, for example, I know we're going to talk about art tests later, but I did like art tests for some of the freelance stuff I did where they would just pay me for like 2 or 3 days work to see what I could do.
Yeah.
And then they would bring me more work afterwards. So like one of my clients who I worked with quite a long time was like an advertising and music video agency who did all the VFX for those kind of things. And I worked on a music video for them first. And then after I had kind of proven myself with like 2 days work on that, because it was a very short project, they contacted me again and again and again. So that's kind of how those kind of interviews generally work, I would say. Because also on a freelance contract, they can like fire you straight away if you're not doing it.
Yeah, usually you have like a week notice something.
Yeah, not even that. They don't have to give you notice on most freelance contracts.
Really?
They just to say, all right, we're done with you. Goodbye. Here's your money.
Ciao. Yeah.
Ciao, bella.
And so the interview you mentioned before, so did you have a second interview? Did you have an art test?
That was it.
Without going
Just the
into
one.
too much detail. Just the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. What
Okay.
about you, Stefan?
Yeah, go on, Steph.
I had a few, I think like 2 interviews, and I remember having like a quick call with a recruiter as well. And we're talking like experiences, you know. And the quick call that I had, I remember being like feeling like very corporate when I talked to the person, and like that was not the job that I wanted at the time. It was a job. It was funny because around the time I was like doing interviews, essentially. And speaking with a bunch of people for different jobs and stuff, and working a little bit of freelance. So it all was kind of happening all at once. And I had my interview later. That was like my proper interview experience, which was with an art director that was very, very nice. And we essentially just, you know, I think it was like first 10 minutes we talked about art and like, you know, introduction to each other, and then from then he like really kind of liked my work and what I was doing and liked me, I guess, as a personality. And then we just like after 10 minutes that's it. We just started to like talk as we knew each other all like for years. And it was super
is
nice.
funny how like sometimes in interviews you can say the right thing and the mood changes quite a lot. I remember kind of unrelated, but when I was doing my university interviews to get into universities, I went to this university. I think it was probably, I don't know, it was one of the arts uni. It was UAL university, but I can't remember which one. And I went in and I had this interview, and I was queuing for like 2 hours, and there was this one guy who was like the head of the course who kept interviewing people, and you could see them coming away from the conversation like genuinely distraught. And so I asked, I was like, I was speaking to one of the students who was currently there, and I was like, I have my interview with a guy called Mike. Who is that? And they went, oh, dude, I'm sorry, you're fucked. And I went, what? They went, yeah, Mike's the guy who runs the course, and I've seen him make people cry for university interviews before. So they're like, just, you know, take whatever he says with a pinch of salt and try your best. And so I went into this. I was like, well, I'm screwed. Not going to get into this. And I sat down, and sure enough, this guy was like really fucking mean. He was very brutal, extremely disinterested in everything I was showing him. And then at some point, he saw this piece of work in my portfolio, and he went, oh, this is kind of cool. He was like, this kind of reminds me of like Mike Mignola. And I went, oh yeah, Hellboy. I bought one of his collections recently. And from that moment forward, he was like, oh man, I fucking love Hellboy. And we were like, yeah. And I was like, have you read Deep? And he was like, oh dude, that's a fucking great comic book. Have you read like this, that, you know, Mobius? And it was just, we just spoke about that for the rest of the interview while he was looking through my work. And then as he was looking through my work with the conversation being more positive, he was going, this is great. I mean, this is really good work, actually. So by the time the interview ended, he said to me, he was like, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm definitely giving you a priority spot on the course. So, please just come if you want to come. And I was like, oh, yeah, cool, man. and I walked away, and the guy who I'd spoken to previously, he was like, hey man, how was the chat with Mike? You okay? And I was like, oh yeah, he said I've got a spot. He went, that's pretty fucking crazy. So it's like, yeah, it's funny how like sometimes when you talk to people, it's just like you find that common thing that you both enjoy, and suddenly all the doors open up.
This is so true. This is what happened in my interview as well.
Yeah, it's about breaking the ice. You just want to make it so you can connect on something.
Yeah, I was talking to the art director, and I said, I really like what's the name of the guy who worked on Star Wars and the Alien movies, did some spaceship designs. I bought art book to Daniel from this guy as well.
Ron Cobb,
yeah. Ron Cobb. And I was like, oh yeah, I love Ron Cobb. And he was like, yeah, Ron Cobb, I love Ron Cobb. And then, that's just how it goes. Like, yeah, I really enjoyed the old school design. And then we just like start talking about design and what we like. And pretty much that's it. After that, like I had a few more interviews. So about another 2 interviews. And then I essentially, the
rest is history.
Yeah, the rest. I mean, this is like, I guess it's not really a secret because this is for Shark Mob.
Well, definitely not a secret anymore now.
But like we had multiple interviews just to make sure that they kind of like that I fit into the team, even though it was a small team at the time in London, and they were very nice, and I think we all had shared the same vision of creating really cool shit. And even though I was like a beginning junior, I think we kind of, I don't know, they believed in me, and I really am happy for that. I'm thankful.
That's great, dude. Yeah, I think it's definitely about finding something to connect with the people and almost to become friends. I mean, you cannot become friend in a meeting, but to have some friendly energy.
It's good to like know,
like to be open to them. Like you show you're open to discussion, you're open to listening to stuff, you're open to sharing stuff. You're not like, it's good not to be too stressed. It's good to be confident in yourself to an extent, of course. But
it's almost like you want them to start getting excited. So like about things that they are talking about to you in some way. So like whether it's about art or whatever, if you can find that similar topic that you can talk about. And sometimes you need to kind of just be careful, be like, because like some companies might not want you to be like the super most hardworking person ever and like super into everything. Maybe they want you to be kind of like more chill. And then maybe if you are not that way, then maybe you shouldn't pretend. But
it's also just about reading the room and figuring out what people want. To say it, And
I had a
difficult thing.
Yeah, I had an interview that went, I feel like my first interview, I think it went quite well. I was talking about my work. They asked me a lot of questions. We had a nice chat. We laughed a lot. They laughed at me. No. We laughed a lot about subjects, and it was quite nice, I think. But yeah, like a week after, they sent me an email. They actually called me, and they were very nice. Like, we really like you, but we went with someone else. Yeah. But so that's, sometimes it does go well, but then someone else is better. Yeah, someone else goes better. Some of the time, it was an interview that went very well. It was like a half an hour, very speedy interview, and it was like, yeah, you're starting on Monday. So it varies, So and some of the time it's like, yes, so interview number 1 goes well, then interview number 2 goes well, then maybe some art test goes well, and so like it really depends, I think, the company and the need for an artist as well, and the time frame of when to start.
I think it's always important to remember as well to always contact people afterwards after the interview. I've spoken about before how like initially when I applied to ILM, they rejected me, and I spent like a week like sulking about it, and then my mum told me, you should email them just to say thank you for the opportunity. And when I eventually emailed them, they replied and said, oh, we thought you just weren't available. And I was like, I am available. And then 2 days later, I got a phone call. I got the job offer. So it's like, if I had never emailed them for the follow-up and I'd just been like a sad sack of shit the whole time, I would never have got that job. So thanks, Mum.
Listen to your parents.
Listen to your mum, yeah. not your dad. He doesn't know what's going on. But yeah, like following up and keeping things open with people and continuing to have conversations even after the point of the interview to keep yourself in the loop and to ask if they can keep you in the loop is very important. Again, I mean, the thing with me is a pretty extreme example, I think, but you should always be willing to, you know, don't let a bridge burn or even fall apart. Just try and keep the bridges there because the opportunities can come up in the future anyway.
In terms of how to behave, I think it's good to be, from my own point of view, it's good to be professional. It's good to be smiling a lot. Yeah. It's good to be interested, to be proactive, but also know when to listen. Yeah. Especially if you do have a Zoom, it's sometimes very easy to talk of people. So just take the time, let people talk, let them finish the sentence, then you answer the questions. And, you know, there's time to have fun, there's time to ask questions, there's time to answer questions. And it's about kind of reading the room and being comfortable, being confident. But, like, you know, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm the best artist, fuck you guys. Yeah. Like, so it's, I think being open-minded is good. And also, if they reached out to you,
that's a big positive.
That's a big positive. So be confident about your skills. You're not here for no reason.
I think also, like, try to be interesting. Like, there is something to be said for being an extreme passionate artist, and I think especially with the three of us, like, a lot of our hobbies are making art beyond the art that we already make. But it's good to, when you're in an interview, one of the most common questions is like, so what other stuff do you do? What are your hobbies? And it's pretty good idea to have some other things that you're interested in so you don't sound like a massive loser, which is a problem I've always struggled with. But
still, you sound like a massive loser
every day. Yeah. But the problem is, you know, it's like, are there other things that you do that are actually interesting, whether you realize it or not? Like, I mean, it's not like a big thing, but I like to go walking and go on hikes and stuff like that. And that, at least, you know, when I say that, people are like, okay, well, he goes outdoors.
I like to sleep and breathe.
Yeah.
I like pizza.
Yeah.
I like to travel.
I like going to
museums, traveling, whatever. But I mean, like, literally anything. You like going to the gym?
I like sleeping again. Just say the most basic human shit.
I like money.
when you apply for a video game company, be like, I love playing video games. This is actually I'm thinking about something else now. How about the thing when you apply for video games? You should probably be aware of their games that they work on.
Yeah, you should.
I was just gonna say that is very
like
important.
always do research on
Prepare
where
yourself.
you're going.
Yes.
Yeah.
Know who you're talking to. Like, if you're like, oh, you're gonna have a meeting with Paula and Jake, then look into Paula and Jake on LinkedIn and like make sure you know who they are. If you know that Paula said Paula and not Polita, or I don't know, you know how to say the name. You know, like
Do your research, do your homework.
Yeah.
Because like, even if, like, another really common question is, why do you want to join our team?
Yeah.
And if you can say like, well, I'm a really big fan of John, Tom, Sarah, Jeannie, and Henry, who all work on the team, then they're instantly going to go, oh shit, he knows who works on our team. Or, you know, and that is a big bonus because you've clearly taken the time and done your research and you care about where you're applying. If you come in and they say, what do you think about our team? And you just go, I don't know. I saw an ArtStation post once. I don't know. I mean, I just need to work. You know, it's like, of course, there is it's an element of showmanship, I would say, really, at the end of the day. Like, no company really expects you to, like, live and breathe the idea of working with them. But for an hour, you can put on a bit of a show and put in the effort to show that you care enough to do that, at least. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That doesn't mean being a fanboy. That means just being professional enough to show that you're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
You know? It's like if you talk to someone, or if you respect people usually, you care about what they do. Yeah. And so if you don't care about what the studio is doing when you have an interview with them, then you don't respect them. And they're not going to respect you back if they feel like you don't care about them.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about art tests, but we've all done them. So do you guys have any specific advice? I think my thing is this. An art test, you're nearly always given a time limit. And I personally think you should try and stick to the time limit as much as you can to give the people you're going to work with a realistic view of what you can do.
I mean, what do you mean by time limit?
Well, okay, some people, like, let's say...
That's obvious, no?
No, because many people will get a art test for a week and then they start working on it 3 days before. So they've done actually 10 days of work when they're meant to have done 7, right? Like that's how many people do it.
Well, the artist I just got the brief when I was supposed to start.
Yeah, but the point is like, okay, so at least my understanding, because I've seen many of my other friends do them as well. Very common that people will get the brief before it begins,
Oh, really?
and they're said
Okay.
like, and they'll say like, okay, so can you start this on Monday and send it to us on Thursday, and then you can start early, or they say, we'd like you to plan out how much time this takes, and then you just like cut off a few hours, so it looks like you did it quicker. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessary. Like, look, it's not illegal. It's fine. Like, as long as you can get the final output done. But I also think it's often a good idea to actually try and do it within the time limits, and to record how long things actually take. So you can, because I think a lot of companies appreciate the honesty and the forthrightness of showing like, it takes me 2 hours to do my 3D. Then it takes me a day to do my paint over. Giving them the process, the breakdown of how you work.
Especially because the people judging your work, they know, most likely. You know, like an art director can tell your portfolio and what you did and the time you had, or like other stuff you like. You know, if you're supposed to do something for like a day and then it looks like a piece of a portfolio you have, which you said took you 10 days, then obviously you lied. You know, they will see it. But yeah, and yeah. So I think also, but I mean that's very obvious to me, but. But giving stuff on time, you know, it's like, so being honest with them, but also like don't be late at all. Like it better give them a bad at work than be late, you know.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's very important. Sticking to the brief, like if they ask you a blue dragon and you make a dragon which is turquoise and it says like it has to be blue.
Yeah.
Then you have a job, you know, like you need to respect client brief, you need to respect, like I think that's more important to respect the brief than to have to spend another 2 hours refining the image, you know, necessarily.
I also think it's important to, just like with a real brief, to make sure you ask them the right questions. If you're confused about something in that brief, do not be afraid to ask them the specifics of what that should be. If it says we want a kind of blue dragon and you're sitting there going, what does kind of blue mean? Reply to them and say, hi, I just wanted to clarify with you before I get to work on the brief. What does kind of blue entail? Do you mean that it's a blue pattern? Do you mean that it's more tinted towards yellow or red? Do you mean that it's a gradation from the head to the tail? What do you mean by this? You know, and just very politely ask them for clarification, because that also shows that you're intelligent enough and kind of humble enough to know when you might not know something.
Yeah. And I think if you want to ask questions, it's good that you maybe spend an hour reading through everything, start thinking about it. And then if you want to ask questions, ask many of them at the same time, because you don't want to send them like 5 emails over the weekend, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Nice.
Any other stuff about?
Not really. I mean, I had some
Artists?
artists, but nothing major other than like just it gives you time to find out if you want to work for the company as well.
Yeah.
Talking about art tests, sometimes when you get a job, you might have to relocate.
Hey, segue.
So, Jules, what's your thing about it again? It's probably unrelated to what I just said, but what's your topic?
I think it's about relocation.
Oh, that's crazy,
Yeah,
man.
crazy, man. I can't believe
I
it.
wonder if I can start about it a little bit.
Well, let me introduce it and I can ask you a question.
He hasn't even said the topic yet, man.
Yeah.
We just had a segue. Yeah. So we all live in the UK. Shocker. Maybe not you listening, but the 3 of us do. And I mean, I'm not from the UK. Stefan is not from the UK. So the topic and the kind of question is it worth, or when is it a good practice to relocate? Why did we choose the UK?
Yeah.
And why are we still in the UK? You know, like why am I still here? Good question. So yes, that's the topic.
Can I start off? Because I actually have the shortest conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah. So guys, I'm from England.
I never relocated.
Yeah. But I guess to start us off, like, there's an obvious reason why I've never relocated, because in Europe, London is the center of the film and games industry. The UK specifically, the vast majority of the jobs that are available are in the UK, because it has a really big tech and entertainment sector.
So did you say Europe or UK? You just repeated Europe. I think you said UK twice.
Most of the jobs in Europe for
are in
games and entertainment are in the UK.
Cool. Not in like Paris or like Poland?
No, definitely not. What are you talking about?
Like
No,
in games, there's a lot of game developers.
There are jobs there, but there's like way more studios in the UK, and there's way more film work in the UK as well, especially
Film work,
when you
yeah.
consider that like Pinewood and what's the place near Reading? I don't know. Like loads of stuff gets shot in the UK is the point.
Well, I think film industry, by far, UK is almost, if you want to really work in like VFX houses, or if you want to work on set for Hollywood type of movies, I think it's pretty much the UK or nothing.
Yeah.
Or it's freelance from
Germany
home.
has some as well.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, you can live in Germany, but then you work from home, working freelance, I guess, on movies, you know. But I'm not sure. Maybe.
So,
Or
like
for Hollywood, that kind of
Trickster,
stuff.
Trickster, yeah. They worked
Yeah,
on
but
Captain
dude,
Marvel.
there's
Yeah.
like I'm not saying that there aren't studios
Yeah, yeah.
outside of England, but if you looked at a map
Map.
of the density of studios, the UK would be the most dense area,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
I mean, off the top, like even if you look at the amount of companies that fund our event, the majority of them are based in the UK, right? And the majority of people who come to our event are based in the UK, even though we have people from all over Europe, right?
I think finding some exceptions who are not in the UK make it highlight the fact that most of the others are in the UK, you know. But yeah, for video games, I think you can find loads of stuff in France. That's true. In Germany as well. France is quite developed for video games.
Yeah, but still not as much as here. Like even, I mean, what the main studio in France that I'm aware of is Ubisoft, right?
Yeah, and there's also the Bethesda.
Yep.
Yeah.
The people who did Dishonored. Yeah, there's loads of them.
Yeah.
There's like probably 40 studios in France.
UK doesn't have like a massive scene for that many AAA titles. They have AAA titles, but like, I mean, I guess that's a question of like what is AAA. But like when you think about the like latest AAA video games, you don't necessarily think about UK studios that much. You would still be thinking about US, but I guess in Europe,
No,
or like in
there's
Europe,
loads, dude.
like in Europe, you have, for example, like in Poland, you have
CD Projekt.
CD Projekt and the guys who did Dying Light. That
Oh yeah, Haze.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, those guys.
So
Yeah,
France was
let's
the
do
EU.
statistic.
So here's Google from 2021. France was the EU country with the highest number of game development studios in 2021, having 1,147 such businesses. Then this doesn't really make more sense, but among non-EU countries in Europe, the United Kingdom led with 1,528 video game studios. So I'm right.
But yeah, France is not that far.
No, it's
I
not.
think also France has so many good artists in France, man.
Of
There's
course.
such a
Yeah,
massive
yeah, yeah.
scene of companies and studios.
But the overall
France-
density of stuff
Yeah,
in the UK
yeah.
is high, especially for films.
Especially London, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like more than anything, like because most of the UK stuff we're talking about, maybe not all of it, but most of it is within an hour of train from London.
So in terms of my relocation, all I did was relocate to London from Oxford, which that was only an hour trip. It was fine. So that's me done for this conversation. I'm clocking out. See you later.
That's the adventure of Daniel. Was a bus ride to London.
Train ride. What is your adventure, Jules?
Well, I moved coming from Switzerland, moved in the UK to stay here, and it's because there wasn't any university that was specialized in what I wanted to do in Switzerland. So there was some in France, but the best ratings at the time were in the UK, so that's why I went to the UK. And then London was a bit obvious as well, because I was like, I didn't have a job when I moved to London, but I was like, that's the in between, that's the middle ground to everything else, really, in the UK. And the UK being the area where there's the most chance of me finding a job not too far from where I'm gonna live. And especially in the movie industry, I think, I mean, how many VFX houses is there in Europe? Like,
Not that many.
yeah, I think 10?
Yeah.
10 big enough to have another department, maybe even less.
Yeah, and many of those even have central hubs
Yeah,
in London.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like even VFX house that have an art department, very, very, very few. And so it's either going to Canada or US or UK, or being famous enough to be freelance, working from home, having lots of contacts, which I'm not, so especially not when you start your career. So that's why to me, being here made sense, and now it makes even more sense because now There's like a few companies I could work at. There's my company is here as well. And it's just the most clever, I'd say, or the most logical place to be to pursue a career in the movie industry. Yeah, in Europe. I probably better to go to LA, maybe not, but then I don't want to go to LA. It's like
I was gonna.
family is not too far from the UK, and it just makes sense.
I was just gonna say that if you are thinking of relocating because like there's more opportunities, I mean, what Jules did was quite an interesting move to an incredibly expensive city without having a job here. I got a job here and then I moved here.
Yeah.
And maybe that's gonna be your experience, but if you are gonna do it, if you're gonna move to like a central hub like here and you're gonna spend your saved up money to like move to London, then have a plan of like networking, maybe go to some conferences or something where when you are like guaranteeing yourself a higher chance of like success when you are in a big city like this, because it has a lot of networking opportunities. I would say like I haven't been in other countries, but like the one great thing about UK is that most people learn how to speak English, and if you speak English, you can be here and people are very friendly no matter like where you come from, and they will network with you. Compared to like, I mean, if I went to France, no matter how many video game companies there, I don't speak French, and I doubt that it would be as easy for me to get around rather than here in UK. So yeah, if you are gonna do the thing of like relocating to cities such as London,
Yeah, it's true. I did move here because of a reason as well. I wasn't like, oh, I'm just gonna move here and pay an insane London rent for no reason. It did make sense at the time, and turns out it was a good move for me. But yeah, so what about you, Steph? Because you moved to a few countries, right?
Yes,
For
I have
jobs.
kind of. So I mean, I studied here in UK, and then I moved to Germany, and I was actually doing I got to Germany and I did some freelance in Germany that I kind of like got in Germany, but I met someone over like a coffee. We just had a coffee, and this guy was like a producer, and he was doing this little like movie. So I did some concepts for him, and then around that time I got my job at Shark Mob. So I was kind of like gonna continue on that project, but I got my job at Shark Mob, and I was like very happy to finally have a full-time job rather than like thinking about freelance and stuff. And so then I got to move back to London. And at the time, for example, it was just around UK exiting European Union. So I had my pre-settled status, and that was, for example, one of the reasons why I got the opportunity to have this job, essentially, because at the time, a lot of companies were still in this transitional period where like no one knew how are you going to be like getting visas to people and all this other stuff. So there were a period when it was better to hire someone who like either already has ability to like work in UK.
I mean, even now,
visa or something. But yeah,
the
I'm
UK
gonna get
is
to it. Yeah.
so hard to get into.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to it. So like, for example, if you are applying to a smaller job, a smaller company, it might be more difficult for them to actually get you a visa. But I can guarantee you, if it's like any bigger company, probably above 400 employees, Rockstar, Ubisoft, any of these companies, they'll get you visa no matter what. Even like at Shark Mob, we get visas to people who are not even a senior, like less than senior level. I mean, again, depends on like how difficult and how much we need this person, whatever. But like, we have relocated people from like quite difficult countries to relocate, and sometimes it takes months to get visa to someone to relocate them. But again, if it's a bigger company, they will do it for you.
Yeah.
Because that's because they want you as
Yeah. Not to. I mean, I think if the company is, I don't think every company will do it. Especially, I think the UK is quite hard. But
I think anything
hopefully,
that's
some company is willing to
established.
Yeah.
I think anything that's a big established company.
Yeah. I've heard about some companies not being able to. They want people, but they just can't because it's too hard, or maybe it's because they're too small. I don't know. But it varies the company and the budget they have, or maybe the hiring budget, the relocating budget.
I will say there is, at least from what I've seen, like some minor trickery going on with some of that stuff. Like ultimately, it's not that expensive for a company to get somebody a visa, but it's just like whether they want to invest the time in the
It's all
person. That's
paperwork.
really what it is.
Yeah.
It's not even that much paperwork at the end of the day. You know, it's like, I think that's the unfortunate thing is like, it would be nice if companies just put in a little bit more effort to help people get their visas, because obviously that is the main way, especially in the UK. Like, immigration here is pretty strict, and
it's a business. They want to make profit.
Yeah,
and
I know. But
helping you is not gonna make money to them.
a boy can dream.
Yeah. So
just out of interest as well, because both of you obviously relocated here, what things helped you relocate here specifically, like getting through that process?
I mean, it was very easy for me because it was through university, right? So it wasn't too, I mean, we already had English that I learned back home. And then it was a very easy transition from university. I mean, it was a bit of a shocker, you know, to discover new culture. You know, the English you learn at school is not the same English people speak. All the slang, I was a bit lost at the start. But yeah, other than that, I mean, other than the just being by myself and having to figure out how to be an adult, you know, the relocation wasn't too hard, I think. And after finishing uni, moving to London didn't feel like anything special. I mean, it was London, so it was impressive, you know, because London is such a good city and big city. But I never really felt like I relocated for a specific job. I guess I relocated for a career, potentially. We might say, I can put it like this. But because it was through university, it made it very easy and kind of smooth because, you know, it takes 3 years to complete university. Each year it becomes harder and harder. You have a lot of friends you can meet when you arrive, you know, because I assume that just imagine you just get hired by a company and you go in a country and then you're like, okay, I need to meet friends now. Like, how do I do that? You know, like university definitely helps for you to fit in and almost to develop yourself with time in a new country.
I guess ultimately part of that is like, if you really, really wanted to move to the UK, a university course is a good way to get in, pretty much, right?
Yeah, especially now now I think UK is very hard to get in. I'm very thankful that I got in early enough, because thanks to the studies I've made here, I'm able to, and also getting a job afterwards, I'm allowed to stay here, you know? But I mean, many people now, it's very hard to get in the UK now, I think, for someone who doesn't have a job. And even university is not cheap here either, so...
It's cheaper than US for sure, and it's still.
But the US is not a good example of cheap for course education.
I mean, I guess
most countries in Europe are way cheaper than the UK in terms of education.
True.
Way cheaper.
Yeah.
I've got a question for you.
Oh yeah.
For what reason would you be willing to relocate? Let's say in the US.
A lot of money.
Or in Canada. Like what would drive?
I mean, either
both of you career-wise to relocate to another country after, without being a junior, you know.
I guess probably financial stuff is an obvious choice, right? Like if somebody offers you just a crazy amount of money and you have to move to get that job, but if there's enough money, it's difficult to say no because you can always go and do that job for a few years and then go wherever you want to afterwards. I do think, like, for me, although I'm sure, you know, everybody has their problems with their own culture and the country they grew up in and stuff, like, I do generally, I like living in London. I like the UK. I think that as countries go, it's not perfect, but it's all right. And I think that's more than can be said for a lot of places around the world, especially, I don't know, when it comes to the kind of overall sentiments of places. I don't know, at least in London, I love the kind of variety of people I get to meet, and that it's I guess the word is, it feels quite progressive here in London specifically.
I think it would be so hard after being in, there's so many things to do in London. You can be anyone you want to be. And there's always like-minded people. And
there's always,
and people are very open to anything. And I think it would be a shock in the future to move anywhere. Like, I think anywhere else,
it's an easy place to fit in.
You can find your people here for sure. It's a great city to live in, besides the cost of everything. But I don't know, like, I do really like it here, and I'm also near my family, which is a big advantage. But I'm not against, like, moving to another country for a job. I think it would have to be for either a really good gig or really good money.
You told me before that you thought it would be fun to like relocate to.
I thought it would be fun. Yeah, I'm not against the idea of relocating. I do think I've been very lucky and I've got to visit many countries all over the world, and I do feel like this is a pretty good country to kind of actually live in at the end of the day. Like, there's many advantages to living here.
It is true that if you guys have the opportunity to go study somewhere else than where you're born, or go work at somewhere else, I think it's very good as a human development or as eye-opening experience to just experience other.
I moved a few hours away.
I don't know. I mean, I have had the experience to live in different countries.
Yeah.
I lived in Russia. I lived in Ukraine. I lived in Slovakia. I lived in Germany. And I lived here in UK as well.
Yeah.
And when I say lived, I mean more than 6 months. Well, in Germany, it was 6 months, actually. And I also really enjoy living here in UK. I think London is a great place. Back then when I relocated, it was pretty okay to relocate here, except, and I know there's only like one caveat when I relocate to London, is to make sure that you get accommodation like as soon as you can, and like be very rigorous with finding a good accommodation with good price. It's like very that's like tougher than any other city that is around.
I understand why people hate London as well, just to say that. Like, there are many people. I'm pretty sure Pablo Carpio and Dominguez literally have a YouTube video where they talk about how much they hate London in Spanish. So, I mean, there you go. Like, there's two people who lived in London for quite a long time and talking about how much they dislike it. But I mean, like, for me, it works. And yeah, I'd love to go and experience some other cultures and like actually go and live somewhere else. But I think I would need the right incentive to do it. I'm not just, I'm fine just going on holidays to places. I don't really feel like I need to go live somewhere for 6 months or a year just because necessarily.
It could be nice. Sorry, yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say I would be down to relocate,
Yeah.
But I agree with Dan. It has to be. I mean, not really right now because I'm quite happy on the project that I'm working on and all this stuff. And I don't even think that. I mean, I don't even know what financial amount it'd have to. I mean, surely there would be a financial amount that would agree on to, but it have to be a lot money.
Or great projects. Or maybe maybe a country or a place you really wanted to be or to go for a long time,
But it is interesting, definitely, to move around and.
Yeah.
Also, I think if you really want to get this experience, it might be clever to do it early in your career.
Yeah, when you have less responsibilities.
Yeah, if you get a family later, I mean, we're still young here, but if you get a family later on, or other obligations, or you need to be close to your families for whatever reason, like enjoy now that you're free and flying around. Yeah.
I don't know, for me, it just never really. I think because I've just got to visit a lot of places across my life. I do find many people who talk, they're like, I want to move to this country. Often when someone's super hyped to move somewhere, they have a very rose-tinted fucking view of what that place is like.
Yeah.
And
I want to go to Japan.
Oh no!
I don't know. I like to have whenever I go somewhere or read about somewhere, like I like to learn about the country as a whole, not just about like the positive aspects. And I think the thing is, like, everywhere has its positive and negatives, which makes it very hard for me to say like, oh, I really would love to go to this place, because I feel like to think that, you must think it's fucking heaven and earth. Do you know what I mean? Whereas to me, every country, like, obviously there's better and worse places to live, but the UK is one of the better places, so I'd need to be going somewhere where I feel similarly positive about living there.
Also everyone has different priorities. If someone cannot stand below temperatures below 20 degrees, well, you're gonna hate the UK. If someone cannot stand sun, well, you're gonna hate Spain. So it's like a lot of. It's not all about work. It's about also where your family is, or whatever you want. Loads of stuff.
I just follow Jules around. Yeah, I'm just gonna live where he lives.
I fall down.
It's nice, like a little.
Jules just follows.
It's like a little train.
Yeah,
we walk around.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, it's an interesting topic for sure, because there's many like different nuances to it. But yeah, if you're asking me what it would take to move, it would be lots of money or a really good project.
Yeah,
and probably a mix of both is the honest answer. To really get me going somewhere, especially with freelance.
How about like a 1 year relocation, right? That sounds more reasonable. Like when you go and work on a movie or somewhere.
But at the same time,
for 1 year,
if you move everything, then
Not everything.
don't you want to get
I wouldn't-
comfortable somewhere else?
See, that's the thing is like,
yeah.
I think realistically what Stefan's saying, the 1 year relocation is what I would do. And then I would come back here
Yeah, but-
to see if I really wanted to move over
Yeah,
there.
but see, that's
Do
the
you know what I mean?
difference.
Yeah.
You can leave the UK and have all your stuff here still.
True.
If Stefan and myself, we leave the UK, we don't have anyone we can leave our stuff
No, I mean,
to.
you could pay.
We don't have.
Yeah, and you could
Yeah.
you could pay for what is it called? One of
Storage
those boxes,
boxes,
storage
yeah.
boxes. And they are like not insanely expensive.
Yeah.
You could afford it
Yeah.
for sure for a year, and you have your stuff there.
Yeah.
How about you pay for the rent and I live in your flat?
Double rent.
Great deal.
Ah.
I have a deal for you. You pay, I live.
You pay, I get. That's perfect.
Yeah, but I don't.
We've been talking about this for a long time. Should we round off with the final subject matter?
Yeah,
Was that me?
yeah.
Oh man, I forgot it. Shit.
It's about how to.
Don't. I want to surprise myself when I look at my note. Have you?
This is so
I-
professional.
have you ever thought about how you deal with your time?
What a good time to ask that, is it?
That is a good time to ask it. As we have 10 minutes left of the podcast.
Well, sometimes you run out of time, like now.
So you need to have a better time
Management.
management.
Yeah, time management is a really, I guess, uninteresting but important part of nearly every job, but specifically concept art. I think especially, we all work on quite a lot of personal stuff, and I think it's a fairly common question that we get asked, like, how do you do the event and your job and help people with their work and do personal work at the same time? And the answer is really boring. It's just like, yeah, time management. Do you guys have any like techniques that you use to actually manage your time effectively?
I try and I fail and I adjust and I fail and I adjust and I fail and after many failure, it's fine.
Do you,
Wow,
do you have
not be vaguer. Thank you.
do you have any special apps that you use or any special
Oh, really?
time? I'm just asking you. I don't.
No, I just-
all these like.
I just take a lot of notes
Yeah.
and I think about what I have to do, and I'm very cautious about not taking too much time or losing too much.
It's almost like you do your time management like day by day, essentially.
No, I never have like strict plans, but it's more
Okay.
like it's like, oh, so okay, I've got to do my work, so I just work, and then I'm like, I'm meeting the guys. I mean, you two for the event, and so I need to do this, and this, so I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then when it's done, well, great, I can do other stuff. I try to prioritize the most important things, and then, which is why often the most fun stuff. Sometimes I have to cancel them because like video games. I've definitely been playing less video games lately because I just
Yeah, same.
don't take the. It's not that I don't have, but I don't take the time for it. I think it's not about not having the time, but it's about not taking the time for things.
It's kind of like when you. It's almost like that thing. Like you say yes to playing video games, mean you're saying no to personal work, or you're saying yes
Yeah,
to personal
yeah,
work, you're
yeah.
saying no to video games. And that kind of. It's kind of these kind of decisions you say, oh, I'm gonna say yes to playing extra 1 hour of ping pong at work, and that means saying no
Your
to.
daily struggle.
Yeah, that means saying no to going home on time. You know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I think one of the really important things is making sure that not only when you say you're going to do something that you do it, but also just not. I mean, there's the general sense of procrastinating, right? Where people are like, oh, okay, I don't want to do this. I'm going to watch a show, a Netflix show or whatever. But I think there's also the like almost moment-to-moment procrastination that is quite important to get a hold of and to get a grip of. I think that's what really screws it up for me sometimes when I'm very busy is it's like, okay, I have to do this, but I'm just going to go get a glass of water quickly. And I'm going to sit down. And I sit down with a glass of water. And I'm like, I could do with a biscuit. And go back downstairs, get a biscuit. And I'm like, kind of need a shit. I'm going to go do that. And suddenly 3 hours have passed. Yeah. I've done like many random little things, but I haven't done the one thing I was meant to do. And I really think there's something to be said for just building up the mental fortitude to sit down and do the thing that you're meant to do, to sit there. And I think it's something that comes a little bit easier once you've started working because you have to do it as part of a job. But to really be able to say to yourself, like, all right, I've got 5 things to do today. They're going to take 7 hours overall. This first thing is going to take 2 hours and that's the priority. And now I'm going to do it. And the second you've said mentally, I'm going to do it, you're actually doing it rather than delaying and delaying and delaying.
It's good to, I think with time you get to know yourself and you get to know when you need to rest as well. And it's important to be also honest with yourself, you know? Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really want to do this now, but I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm gonna lay in bed, watch YouTube for a while, and then I'm gonna do it. Or sometimes I'm like, oh, I just came back from being outside, and I know I have got to do some work for the event. I'm like, I really want to lay now, but I know from previous experience that if I lay now, I'm never gonna do my work. So I'm like, I need to force myself now because I know how I function to sit and do the work now, and in 10 minutes I'll be into it, I'll be good, I'll be able to do it, and I'll be able to take the resting hours in 1 hour when I finish my work.
Absolutely.
But this came after I failed a few times. Yeah.
I agree. Like knowing yourself is definitely a good way, kind of to find out like what works for you. I have found that for me is the best to have almost like time management slots, kind of. So I would, for me, my work happens, I either go in the morning to the gym or I do personal work. And I have separate days when I know when I'm doing this. So like Monday, let's say I go to the gym. Tuesday, personal work in the morning. Monday evening, I meal prep. Then Tuesday evening, I do personal work. Wednesday morning, I go to the gym again. Wednesday evening, personal work.
You have very, very tight planning on your stuff. Yeah. And I think it kind of depends what works for different people. But I do think as well, it's important to maybe have some flexibility in what you do too. Yeah. I remember like, you can tell me if we can't talk about this, but like a few months back, we got really busy with the event and we ended up coming home from something and you were like, dude, this is fucked my timetable. Now I can't go shopping. And then on Monday, I'm going to have to do this. And I was like, we were at that for an extra hour, but you were like quite stressed out actually about the fact that it didn't work out exactly, but you're way better at that now.
I am, yeah. And I think, to be honest, that moment and like when we were doing this event, that really helped me to kind of like be like, okay, well, you know, schedule will get fucked sometimes, like, and you really cannot flexible. And like I have actually implemented certain like things that allow me to be more flexible, even like with my food. I do buy ready meals that I used to shit on. Sometimes I have them at home.
You should really shit in the toilet, man.
Yeah. When I say shit on, I meant like I used to be like, oh, they're so unhealthy and stuff. But sometimes it's good to just like be prepared for that kind of stuff and have some food available, but also be ready to kind of change your schedule around. But in general, it does help me to just have time periods of blocks that when I know that I can be doing things, and I don't always have to do it. I don't always have to sit down, but I know that there's this, that I've created this time through my time management that I can now sit down and do it. And you know, and usually I would sit down and do it. I might not do 2 hours, but I'll sit down and do that 1 hour, and that's good enough.
I think that's pretty on point. Is like doing some of it at least is really important, especially when it comes down to personal work. A lot of people who ask me about like, how do you do this much personal work? It's like, well, I make sure that I do some of it at least every day, right?
It's hard to start. Yeah. The hardest part is starting something. Once you're on it, then you're like, yeah, I might just continue, you know?
I mean, Alex Heath told me, I was like, oh, how do you personal work? He said, man, 30 minutes. If I can get 30 minutes. 30 minutes sounds like nothing, and like it really is not that much, but 30 minutes is better than nothing.
Yeah, it's funny because if I do, so for personal work, I work totally differently. If I do personal work, I'm like, today I'm going to do personal work all day. So it's like, for me, it's like in the weekend or after work, but I'll never do half an hour because I feel like in half an hour I can be efficient. So if I just have half an hour, I'm going to be like, I'm going to do something like,
I mean, half an hour is an extreme example of not like very little, but an hour I think is definitely enough.
I think I mainly work in like hour intervals, really. Yeah, but it's just I make sure I find lots of opportunities to do them. Yeah. And I think the thing is like, even a half an hour can be effective if you've already planned before let's say that I have to do like 3D modeling for something for a personal project. If I've already planned what I need to 3D model because I wrote down notes from the last time I finished, then there's no warm-up time, you know. It's just like I read the notes, I'm like, okay, that's what I have to do, and I do it.
That's funny.
That's how I get my projects done pretty fast. So even with like a Photoshop painting, like one of the ones I did recently of like the May Queen girl going, you know, the like very bright colorful one, the way I do that is like, because I try to push my painting a lot these days, and so I will work on it for an hour. I sit in front of it for 5 minutes after I've worked on it for an hour. I on and off between what I just did and what I had before. And then I red line everything in the image that I think is wrong. I close it, I take a break from it, and then I come back to it in another hour, even like 30 minutes later, if I just like chill and do something else for a little bit, or I go and cook some food, or I go for a walk. I come back, and then when I come back to it, not only will my eyes be adjusted, but I don't have the stress of having to remember what I thought was wrong with it before, because I already did that work when I was in the mood. Yeah. So I think it's a really effective way to not have that warm-up period. You're always kind of just like able to jump right into the deep end and just get on with it.
Yeah. I think the reason why I like to... So I totally get that, you know, and I also sometimes do it this way, especially like I think taking short breaks is very good.
Yeah.
But I find that if I work for many hours on a project, I really go on a cruise mode where I'm going to be super efficient on it. And it's like, so maybe 1 hour after I start, or maybe half an hour after I start, and then it's like for 3-4 hours, I can just be hyper focused, like going very, very fast.
I don't feel like I can make good work when I hyper focus. Like I do hyper focus, but I hyper focus intermittently because I need the time to think about what I'm doing in between. If I go on like cruise mode, I find that and you know, you make wonderful work, so I'm sure it's not the case for you. But for me, it ends up as cruise mode quality. To me, I need to actively be thinking about the choices that I'm making.
Yeah, what I mean by cruise mode is not that I'm not thinking. It's just that it's more hyper focus.
Yeah, I find that when I hyper focus, is like best for like if I've already done the design and I just need to model it, or like these like nothing tasks, kind of like just technical monkey tasks, pretty much.
Yeah.
But if I'm designing something and it's like I've done like 6 hours of a 3D design, let's say, and I'm trying to push it to the next level, hyper focusing for another few hours is not going to work. Like I have to come into it with fresh eyes multiple times over the next few hours, red line it, really actively think about it, and not work on it, just think about it.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah.
Yeah, that's just how I work. So
I really like the red line idea as well. Maybe I'll start implementing that actually. I do red lines.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Red line.
Yeah.
I highly recommend.
I do red line my images as well, but usually at the end of my workday, and maybe it would be useful to do it more throughout the day as well when I take like little breaks, just to know the direction. I think it definitely helps. I found like even with personal work, I am a bit more faster now. Even like almost feels like I think probably time-wise I'm more efficient in personal work than actual work, because I need those times in between where I can just like adjust my approach to the painting, and sometimes it's like 1 day break, you know, whereas at work, you know, you get to hour 4 of your work and you still have another 4 hours to go, but now you need to take a break to adjust to do the painting, and like essentially no matter what you need to take like an hour break because you need to adjust.
Lunch break are great.
I
love lunch break because you can eat and you can be happy, and then you go back and you see how shit your painting is.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well,
any kind of final closing remarks on this?
I think time management it takes time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Gem.
No, but you know, and I think I feel like it's so fucking cheesy and I say it every time, but it is true. Everyone is different and everyone has a different working brain in a way.
Yeah.
And what works for us might not work for you. But if
Find
it does,
your way.
good. Yeah, find your way.
Try it out. We all have like slightly different approaches.
Yeah.
Try them out and see what works for you. And yeah, just make the effort to experiment with your own personal
and if it
time
works,
management schedule.
and whatever works for you, then do it. Like no need to change if it works.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that'll be the end for today's episode. We really hope you enjoyed listening. And if you want more, please feel free to subscribe and ring the notification bell. We release episodes every 2 weeks. And if you want any more additional information about the podcast or the event, be sure to check out our Instagram linked in the description below. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Cheers.
See you.
Bye.